Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Indian Family Business Awards 2022. Please welcome Chandra Ranganathan, your host for the evening.
Okay, thank you for that. Please give a huge round of applause to Ravi Chari ji for that mesmerizing performance. Set the perfect note for Moneycontrol's Indian Family Business Awards. While we get the stage ready for the event, let's take a look at the journey of the Indian Family Business Awards.
In a nation where the resilience of businesses are tested, Indian family businesses have consistently been the driving force behind our economy, showcasing remarkable strength and fostering impressive growth. Today, their invaluable contributions cannot go unnoticed. Presenting the Indian Family Business Awards. After the resounding success of Season 1, Moneycontrol, India's leading financial news platform and the trusted destination for all things business, has once again partnered with Waterfield Advisors, the trailblazers in investment advisory and wealth management. Alongside them, we have our process partners, Grant Thornton, the renowned assurance, tax and advisory firm dedicated to driving the success of dynamic Indian global companies. Together, we have created a phenomenal opportunity to celebrate the exceptional achievements of Indian family businesses. Leading the way is an esteemed jury panel. Composed of visionaries who meticulously evaluated these achievers through a three-stage selection process. Let us join together to applaud the unwavering dedication, innovation and indomitable spirit of Indian family businesses. The Indian Family Business Awards.
That's the Indian Family Business Awards for you. Thank you all very much for making it in large numbers this Saturday evening, and whoever's outside, I would request them to come inside because we are about to kick off the event. Now, Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat have become a clarion call in the last decade. But guess who's been making in India and for India for centuries now? Ladies and gentlemen, let's begin with a huge round of applause for India's illustrious business families, the pride and lifeblood of our nation. I think we can do with more energy in the room. I hope you had your tea and coffee. Welcome to the second edition of the Indian Family Business Awards by Moneycontrol Pro, co-created with Waterfield Advisors and our process partner Grant Thornton. Now, this is a platform that seeks to recognize and celebrate the contributions of family firms who make up almost 85% of India Inc. and have been vital to the country's economic rise. At Moneycontrol, we are big believers in the India story. We in fact have a campaign live called MC Bullish on India, something that Prime Minister Modi too acknowledged today. Now, unicorns and unicorns may be hogging the headlines, but it's family businesses who account for over 70% of India's GDP annually. Rooted in values and tradition, family businesses tend to focus on sustainable growth that can outlive generations. Here's to an evening that seeks to recognize and celebrate these trailblazers of tradition. Now, with that, I would like to call upon, but before that, here's a look. I would like to call upon Soumya Rajan, the founder and CEO of Waterfield Advisors, to deliver the welcome address. Soumya, stage is yours.
So, a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with all of you today. Since the time that Waterfield started in 2011, we have been advisors to some of India's most iconic business families. Through this association, we have actually gained a very, very deep insight into the role of family businesses in society, not just as economic powerhouses, but also as community builders. We therefore felt that it was timely in 2021 to co-create the Indian Family Business Awards along with Moneycontrol and the process partners Grant Thornton in order to really acknowledge the role and the importance of family businesses in India. This year, we are extremely proud to be associated with the second edition of the Indian Family Business Awards, and tonight you will hear the remarkable stories in terms of resilience, opportunities and challenges of Indian family businesses. At Waterfield, we have played a pivotal role in wealth creation and the wealth preservation journey of our many businesses that we work with. What is unique to Waterfield is the fact that we operate where we have a complete alignment of interests with our clients. For us, we believe that our family businesses are custodians of wealth in their generation, and therefore the services that we needed to offer needed to reflect this mindset as well. So at Waterfield, we provide services which are really in what I believe is really very important to family principles. Namely, we look at sound financial advice. We help them in terms of navigating their succession skillfully. We look at how can they implement effective governance structures. How can we help them with their estates? And most importantly, how can we help them build their legacies through strategic philanthropy? We are India's most awarded wealth management company, and this is a responsibility that we shoulder with a lot of pride and also a deep understanding in terms of the number of cities that we operate in and financial assets of close to about 5 billion. Family businesses have played an extremely significant role in nation building, and that's well known to everyone who's sitting here. The blood, sweat, and tears of countless families have gone into fueling the Indian economy. As we've seen in Chandra's earlier opening remarks, 70% of India's GDP is contributed by family businesses, and the workforce that is employed is close to about 60%. Our family businesses have upheld the traditions of values that have been passed down in terms of their crafts and their skills, and they've ensured a very rich cultural legacy. Most importantly, they have a long-term vision of resilience that ensures sustained growth for the future and a deep community commitment. As a woman founder and advisor to family businesses in the last decade, I have personally seen the increasing role of women in family businesses, and this is something that I've seen at extremely close quarters. Today, 25% of Waterfield's clients are in fact women, and in order to cater to their unique needs, we started a program called Heritage, which is specifically for women inheritors and women entrepreneurs. Through Heritage, we basically look to help women in 3 distinct areas. The first is around financial literacy, because while many women are financially independent, they're not necessarily financially literate. The second is around networking, and the third is really to help them build their wealth with a purpose, so that their wealth actually has some meaning. A study by the Thomas Medini Center for the Family Enterprises at the Indian School of Business found that about 38% of family businesses in India actually have women in leadership roles, and this number is only increasing. India thrives on its family business, and it would be impossible to imagine this landscape without them. As they evolve and they become global, resilient, adaptable, and forward-thinking, we believe that each one of them will steer India towards our dream of being a global superpower. So tonight, let us celebrate and applaud the spirit of the incredible families and individuals who are here with us today and who are leading us into a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Soumya. That was very inspiring, the role that family businesses play in a rising Bharat, a rising India. Let's take a look at 2 AVs on the journey of the Indian family business.
that wealth is money. But those with wealth know it's more than that. The wealth that transcends into your legacy. The wealth that pushes you to be better than your best. At Waterfield, we help you manage your wealth, even when the hands playing the pieces change. Helping you preserve wealth across generations through investment advisory, family governance, succession, and philanthropy. Waterfield Advisors.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And before we proceed further, let's take a look at our other process partner who's played a critical role in these awards, Grant Thornton. With that, it's time to kick off the first panel discussion this evening. Now, what are some of the key trends driving succession planning and family offices? What has changed and what hasn't? Please welcome the speakers for the session. Soumya Rajan, the founder and CEO of Waterfield Advisors, Pallavi J. Bakru, partner and leader, Grant Thornton Bharat, and Rishabh Shroff, managing partner, Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas. And to moderate this discussion, I'd like to welcome Ashwin Mohan, Editor Deals, Moneycontrol.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a pleasure to host this rather interesting panel in front of this illustrious gathering today in New Delhi. We have the who's who from family businesses of India Inc. And we look forward to some enriching thoughts from our panelists. Key trends in succession planning and family offices. Now, that's quite a gargantuan subject, right? But we're going to try and glean the very best that we can from our panel of experts over here. And we're going to try and keep it sharp, focused, and make it as useful for you as possible. So without any further processes, let's go ahead and let's quickly kickstart. Soumya, opening words to you. Baton being passed right now, if you look at this trend, in the past few years, we've seen the baton being passed more and more to women in family businesses, and that's something that is diametrically opposite to what was happening earlier, where on most of the occasions the baton was being passed to the males in business families. What do you think has contributed to this trend in recent times? Could you throw some light on that?
So as I shared in my earlier speech, we're seeing increasingly more women come into family businesses, and I think some of the reasons for that is, first and foremost, is just the fact that they are qualified to come into the family business. So earlier, potentially in terms of their own qualifications, being educated to take up roles in leadership in family businesses, perhaps that was skewed a little bit more towards the sons rather than the daughters. That has changed in the last, I think the last generation. So we see many more coming in really as qualified professionals in the first instance. The second is that you then also have a much wider talent pool in order to find successors. because if they are qualified, then, and if particularly where a family business is concerned, if you just have more people who are competent to come into the business and they can serve that purpose, then you'd like to actually see them in the business itself. So I think these two are fairly important reasons why we're seeing more women. And of course, I think societal, there's a societal change which is there, which is not about necessarily passing down the business just to the male heirs, but really in terms of can also women step into leadership roles. And the numbers do have it in terms of 38% in leadership roles today, and that's only increasing. So the more global they become, I think their expertise will be very useful for businesses.
Kudos. Hope this trend accelerates in the days to come. We've also got a legal and advisory viewpoint on the panel today. Pallavi, over to you. Would you like to add to what Soumya has said as far as the emergence of women as business leaders is concerned in recent times?
I think Soumya made a very valid comment that, nobody shies from educating the women, the girls in the family. So there's no reason why, they shouldn't have a shot at running the family business. Another interesting trend is in a lot of businesses you'll find they only have daughters. So, there isn't much to choose from. And the women have really stepped up. So, Anna, there are so many examples. We have a couple of them sitting right here in the audience, where they've chosen to join the family business and doing a great job. So I think it's multiple things. It's the fact that there's a lot more awareness, there's a lot more education, and women have proved themselves, which I think only paves the way for more women to come. You also sometimes need the right examples to champion for people to know that yes, this is something we can step up and do, and for everybody to accept it.
Absolutely, we have a few torchbearers, like you said, in the audience.
Absolutely, and it's happened in great measure, and a lot of women have been absolute trailblazers who've paved the way for a lot of other women to come in and step in on the business.
Right. Quickly shifting focus to the subject of family offices. Now, as you're aware, last year, the government had ushered in a new regime, overseas investment regime. And many believe that that perhaps opened the floodgates for Indian family offices to perhaps set up shop abroad. Now, if you look at it, if you compare India and some of the overseas family offices, India isn't as geographically diversified as perhaps some of the overseas family offices in terms of presence. So, you're the legal eagle on the panel today, Rishabh. What's been the response so far from India Inc. To the overseas investment regime? I know the RBI of late is sort of frowning upon it, so if you could throw some light on that.
Sure. Let me just add maybe one quick comment on what the two very smart women before me also said. I think I would also congratulate both the fathers and the father-in-laws and the whole kind of women coming into leadership roles as well. For women to succeed, there also has to be an acceptance on the other side where somebody is conceding space or somebody is actually making space for women to come up and prosper. So I would congratulate both the fathers and the father-in-laws in the audience as well from that angle. I think on your question on family offices, especially overseas diversification, it has been wholeheartedly and fully, I think, welcomed by Indian families today. No matter how diverse your portfolio in India is, you're still exposed to an India risk. So I think we're seeing more and more families looking overseas to have more or less an India hedge.
And which jurisdictions are they aiming at?
In order of preference, I would definitely say Dubai, followed by Singapore, and now the new kid on the block is Gift City. So that's also really up and coming.
And any reasons why these jurisdictions are finding favor with the current lot of family folks looking to set up shop abroad?
Sure, I think the ecosystem is pretty conducive, I think, to Indian families really setting up base over there. We are seeing them very welcoming to Indian money, Indian capital. They have a good ecosystem of advisors there who are kind of savvy with the Indian ecosystem as well. I think Dubai, more than others, really has upped its game and really making it easier to open structures, to really sort of have a sophisticated ecosystem built around you. They are more welcoming of Indian money compared to Chinese money compared to Singapore. So I think between the two, I think if you asked me the question a year ago, I would say Singapore is winning, but today it's head and shoulders above Dubai is winning the whole overseas family office fight.
All right, you heard it, audience. Dubai is the destination to go if any of you are planning to set up shop abroad as far as the family offices is concerned. Soumya, what about the regulators' viewpoint on this, right? Now, recently, there were a few press reports which said that perhaps the regulator isn't exactly that enthusiastic about the overseas investment regime and investment in financial services being used by certain family business to set up shop abroad. What do you think could be the concern of the regulator, and what are your clients saying?
I think clearly you've got to be on the right side of the law. So whatever you do, it has to be regulatorily correct. one interesting new space that they introduced recently in Gift City was the Family Investment Fund, where they were allowing for clients to actually have exposure overseas. So really to, in some sense, diversify your investment portfolio. That's still in the very nascent stages. We are yet to see a family investment fund approved, but the fact that there was such a regulation which was even put in place seems to suggest that there is a little bit of just an ability to allow families to look at diversifying their investment portfolios. So I think in that sense, that's a step in the right direction. I don't know if Rishabh would like to
Yeah,
add
I think
a few
that's more or less what I would say. I think the problem is India has this Hotel California syndrome. Also, in Indian business, it's very hard to go outside India. So, which is why when the small opening came in the system in the new ODI guidelines to take money outside, there was a huge flood of money which sort of took that route and went out. I think the government or the RBI maybe woke up a little too late in this situation and said, let's get some of it back, or at least slow the flood. So, I think that's what the policy thinking
Now
is
you've
today.
answered my question. Right, Pallavi,
I
who
think
in your...
just to add to that, I think it's also to encourage the family investment fund in Gift City. Gift City has been around for a while and needed a bit of a push. And I think that's one reason why the point that you mentioned about authorized dealers being informally told not to
Absolutely, yes.
allow money, I think is also to push people to go towards Gift City, because if diversification of wealth is what you need to do, a family investment fund allows you to do that. You don't necessarily need to have a company overseas to do that. You can do it out of an FIF, which for FEMA reasons is overseas jurisdiction.
So, I was in fact coming to the whole Gift City point. So, who among your client list is ready to make the debut? What's the response so far? And what are some of the issues or aspects that perhaps maybe the government needs to address or look at to make the entire process a little more streamlined and friendlier?
So I think Soumya mentioned that there haven't been any approvals yet. And I think that's a little telling. The scheme is fabulous.
Okay.
It essentially allows any family, not just individuals, but even companies controlled by the family, to invest up to $10 million over a 3-year period and set up a fund which is open-ended, self-regulated in the sense they can choose on their own how they want to make the investments. The interesting part of an FIF is it also allows you to invest in physical assets, something that's never been seen before. And I think that's where the hitch is. I think the regulators want more clarity, because otherwise we'll have people buying real estate, which is something that the RBI has always been a little hawkish about, in the sense Indians buying property abroad. So I think it's just a matter of time. I think it's a great route. There's a tax benefit that's available. It's something, I think, just a matter of time. As soon as I think a couple of applications get cleared,
right,
we will just pave the way for a lot more. Yeah. In
right.
fact, a lot of people are waiting and watching to see what happens.
Right, let's see whether some of them get off the block. Rishabh, so, we spoke about this earlier, right? About the entire sanctity of family business constitutions, correct? Do you get this feeling that they're perhaps being ignored in bad times and perhaps being only relied upon in good times? It's quite a tricky sort of aspect. And also I would like to ask you, since you're a lawyer, can you get perhaps certain effective governance structures in place that ensure the sanctity of a family business constitution, perhaps an investment committee, perhaps an investment code? Loaded question, but go for it.
So I would say when I was a very young and naive lawyer, maybe not that long ago actually, that I had this idea that FCs were like a magic bullet, that every family which had it would kind of last 1,000 years, and there was no ways families would dispute if they had a family constitution, or no way they would they would have proper way to resolve conflicts and things like that. But after seeing the many large India's iconic families really landing up in court, and at the heart of the dispute actually being a family constitution, I may perhaps wrongly or rightly be a bit jaded about how I see FCs and their really long-term viability today.
Okay, don't take any names, but give us an example. Give us a case study. Some anecdote from your experience so far.
Google family dispute today, you will get, in the last 2 years, it'll say some of the largest Indian families have gone to court, and some of them are very hostile and contentious as well. And in every single case, there's been a lawyer-drafted family constitution, binding, etc., etc. And it was made at a time when the families worked on certain assumptions about successor will be so and so, the economic business will grow in so and so way, and almost 10-15 years later after the document was signed, assumptions have changed, people have changed, emotions have changed, etc. So the family in place today doesn't agree with what the family did 10-15 years ago. So That's landing
So
up in
is that a
court.
blueprint that you have to perhaps ensure that these family business constitutions keep pace with time, you know?
Not a blueprint, but I would say the reason why many of these fail is that after you sign the document, it goes into a drawer, never to be opened again. So every single case we've seen that nobody really has followed up on the good intentions and spirits when the document was signed. Having really living the family constitution, living the principles, enforcing a conflict mechanism, etc. So I think until you live your document, live your FC, I think it's sort of doomed to failure from day one.
Right, Soumya's beaming. Soumya, weigh in.
Just in terms of the constitution itself is not legally enforceable.
So it is.
You can make it legally enforceable, but by and large it's really one where what we've seen is that you want to really articulate the family values, because I think that's one very crucial part about why is it that family businesses have a legacy generation after generation. And one of the common threads that we've always heard is that it's the family values that has really made that possible. So what we do see in many constitutions today is a fairly clear articulation of the values. So not really so much into the legalese, but really more in terms of just what is the spirit of the family. So that's something that we've seen.
Malavi, from your experience?
So I'm very, very bullish on family governance charters. I think it's absolutely excellent for families to have a governance charter. I usually define it to people by saying it's like the articles of association for a family. It tells you all the do's and don'ts. We've helped a couple of families draft their family governance charter, and we normally start with a legacy. Because I think over a period of time, people forget where their roots were. And I think it's also, like Soumya mentioned, a great document to sort of reiterate the values of a family. And that sort of really, stands out more in a family business, because they stand out for what they believe
There's
is a family
legacy,
and a value
certain set of
system.
values.
And what people are doing now, and there are a lot of examples. I mean, I'm sure, Rishabh sees the ones who actually land up in trouble. But there are a lot of people, for example, the GMR family. I mean, I'm very happy to take that name. They have a family governance charter that they abide by, and that sort of helped them ensure that a lot of people from the family and the business, without, ever anybody hearing of any dispute out in the public space. And I think that's what is making a lot of people set up those governance charters. See, if people want to fight, they're anyway going to find a reason to fight. But in the normal course, if there's clarity for people in terms of what are their roles, what are their responsibilities, if there are differences, how do you sort them out? Quite often in families, because there's a lot of emotion involved, people don't even know how to have a dialogue with somebody and say that we're not happy about something. But if you can create that platform, and the best thing, and I often say this to people, is when you go and tell somebody what you're doing is not right, it's a you and me conversation. But when you tell somebody what you're doing is not as per our family governance charter, it's not a you and me conversation.
That has a greater impact.
So much easier to have that conversation.
Right. There's lots more we need to touch upon this topic. Soumya, we spoke about this earlier, and you said, and you told me that, Ashwin, for many years, you usually had the CFOs or the finance heads of most family businesses who used to look at both the family business as well as the wealth, right? Then we sort of chatted up about how there's a clear distinction now. There are separate teams looking at the family business, and there are separate teams looking at the family wealth. So therefore, there's a clear-cut differentiation of roles. Throw some light on how that trend has evolved.
So that trend actually has come because you've been setting up family offices. Because the family office in some way is representing the family to be the custodian of that wealth. So specifically when you look at investments, earlier we used to see that the corporate organization, their CFOs, those finance teams would really look after all the investments for that family. But as families have liquidity events, as they have money that comes into their personal names, they then recognize that the way in which that wealth has to be managed is very different from a business, because you are in some sense trying to make sure that you're preserving that wealth for future generations. So your outlook in terms of how the investments are made as well is very different. It's not short term in terms of 1 year or 2 years or 5 years. It is 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years. The entire mind shift is then very different. So it means then that you need two very different sets of investment professionals really looking at this, because it's like saying that one is very patient capital and one is where you really do need to have an eye on liquidity if you ever need it.
Right. Quick question before we move on to
Can
a
I
few
add
other
to that
aspects.
one?
Sure, Rishabh, go ahead.
I completely agree with what Soumya is saying. I think if you look at the non-financial aspects of family offices today, we are seeing a whole new ecosystem of professionals really come into that space, and I'm sure many of the families here who have family offices would want somebody who's not just somebody who's on the compliance and financial side, but somebody who can help kind of bridge the gap on conflict management in the family, who can help resolve differences, and somebody who maybe comes from a learning and development background as well. We are seeing now the demand for somebody who's, for example, worked in consulting, somebody who sort of worked in the academic side, especially from a family business or of teaching perspective, somebody who's kind of worked in large MNCs, who comes from, let's say, a CFO background, who kind of handles risk, compliance, strategy, etc. So I think the kind of skill set we are seeing coming into the more sophisticated, larger family offices today is actually very, very slick. Not just a compliance person, but actually somebody who can help bridge the gap between the family and the business.
So it's become more institutionalized.
1000%.
Right. Pallavi, you've worked with the advisory world. You've also been associated with the conglomerate in the past. What are some of the structures that are popular nowadays or in vogue with family offices?
That's a tough one. So, family office is not necessarily a entity. Usually you'll find for most large families, it's an umbrella of entities. It'll have a trust, it'll have an LLP, depending on what you want to do. But what we're increasingly finding is that, the need for a family office is actually because of people wanting to create a private book of wealth away from their operating company. So it'll be a lot of companies which are land owning, you're holding real estate in them, you're doing private investments in the stock market, you're doing private investments in terms of investing in startups. So it's not really one structure that sort of fits everything. There are a bunch of structures that are chosen for valid reasons, whether it's tax efficiency or the ability to do ODI. So for example, a lot of people want to do investments overseas. So you always need to badge an entity within your family office that's going to do those overseas investments. So I would say it's multiple entities with different focus that are being set up. But a sort of common theme that we find across the companies who we've worked with to set up their family offices, they want to rationalize the number of entities.
Right.
People by legacy have had multiple entities. They don't want to complicate their lives because they definitely feel that children are not going to be able to handle so many entities.
Coming to the topic of children, the next question to you, Soumya, and this is about Gen Next. We have some of them here in the audience. More and more family offices are now also moving towards private market investments, and some of them are also thinking of themselves not just as Indian family offices, but global family offices. Is it perhaps because of the aspirations of Gen Next? What's your experience?
So the first, in terms of private markets, the ecosystem for private markets in India has significantly improved. In the last decade, you've seen private equity, you've seen venture, which has come in. And we ourselves at Waterfield have seen client books move from about, when I first started the company, at about 1% of their portfolios in private markets to now close to about 12%, which they take both through fund exposures as well as direct investments. The interesting thing about private market investments is really the fact that you are diversifying in terms of your investment out of public markets. So that's the reason why they look at private markets. Also because the returns on private markets, if you get it right, and if you get the exit, then technically you can get returns which are superior to what you may get in public markets. So there's a debate out there every time I meet a family saying, why should I put money into private markets when I can get very good returns in public markets? But having said that, the reason why you do look at private markets is because there are certain themes in investments. So if you were to look at, let's say, newer things which are happening in healthcare, if you look at robotics, if you look at autonomous vehicles, if you look at plant-based, nutrition. These are all areas which, do you have companies in India which are specifically what you can buy into in public markets? Chances are no. So in that sense, you do need to have a little bit of exposure there if you want to take some exposure to the newer emerging investment themes. The other reason what we see in family businesses why they like private markets is because they don't want to necessarily be blindsided by a newbie that's come into their area. So when you're tracking or making investments into private markets, let's say you are a pharma company, you want to know what's happening in health tech. You may find that it's an ancillary business that you may want to buy somewhere down the line. So you want to start seeing some of those quite early on, so that you're not then, kind of exposed to somebody
Right.
coming and really moving your cheese.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why we see private market investments increasing. And of course, around the next gen, I do feel that from a global lens, the opportunity set in terms of investment opportunities is much wider outside of India.
Sure.
In India, it is still a very, very restricted set. That's also one of the reasons most families look at having a family office set up outside of India as well, because just the exposure to the kind of opportunities, whether it's in sustainability, whether it's in impact, these are not as prevalent or coming into mainstream investments as they should.
Right, point
as
taken.
what
Right.
you get overseas.
So, since I cover deals for a living, I have to slip this question in, and I know we're coming to the end of this panel. Quick 30 seconds, Rishabh. So are the Premji Invests, the Manipal family offices, the Ratan Tata family offices, really giving a run for the money as far as M&A scenario is concerned when you compare them to some of the heavyweight private equity suitors? Quick question, a quick answer. We are running out of time. 30 seconds.
Even less than that, I would say definitely giving a run for the money. They can sign same large amount of checks. They can move faster. They get to the same network effects that a large kind of private equity player will have. They look better on your cap table as well. So if you're having a choice between, let's say, a large bulge bracket private equity or a family office, take the family office money.
All right. You heard Rishabh Shroff over there. On that optimistic note, ladies and gentlemen, I must come to the end of this engrossing panel. Rishabh, Soumya, as well as Pallavi, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Hope you got some key takeaways from them. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Ashwin. Fascinating discussion. I'm glad there are no VCs in the room because, Rishabh said, if you have a choice between private equity and family offices, well, take the family money. But with that, it's time to kick off our second panel discussion. Now, in the first panel discussion, Ashwin took you through the key trends in succession planning and family offices. Well, for the second panel discussion, we move away from the enablers, the rainmakers, the deal makers, because it's now time to hear from people who have skin in the game. The Scions of India Inc., who are taking their legacy forward. Please welcome the next-gen legacy builders, the young guns steering family businesses for this next discussion. Sudarshan Venu, the Managing Director of TVS Motor Company. Guys, some applause. Roshni Nadar Malhotra, the Chairperson of HCL Tech. And Puneet Dalmia, the MD of Dalmia Bharat Group. Please also welcome my co-moderator for this discussion, Soumya Rajan. We're making Soumya work really hard today. So, Sudarshan, Roshni, Puneet, have you guys met each other? Do you guys hang out?
I think I'm too old to hang out with him, I guess.
But hopefully this will lead to some new friendship. We will see some collaboration between the north of India, south of India. So,
Puneet is more my father's friend. But now I'll also hang out with him.
And I'm half of both. So I'm perfectly.
yeah, Roshni is half of both, right? So, we are not going to ask about top line, bottom line, profits, losses. We know all of them are profitable. They are not unicorns. And their results are there for all to see. We are more curious actually about their own personal journey, because each one of them, has taken a very different path in terms of how they look at their family's legacy, their responsibility, and their personal arc. And that's what, I want to start with. Sudarshan, take us through your own journey as the leader of TVS Motor. What guided your choices and how did you prepare for it? Because, it can't have been easy growing up under the shadow of two very successful parents.
I mean, my parents are both here, so first I should thank them for this. I think those of us who have this opportunity are very lucky. And I think also particularly in our generation, India is today on the global map. It's one of the best investment destinations, if not the best in the world. It has a fantastic demographic dividend, huge amount of talent and energy. So I think that has created an environment which is very conducive for Indian companies like ours to have a large market and to build from there. So I think we are really in a lucky position. And as far as TVS is concerned, I think it has been really exciting to have the opportunity to do some of the things that we've been able to do, to now invest behind electrification, to make aspirational products and build on technology, to leverage the Indian market to go abroad and make investments, but also sales and local connect in important international markets. So I think it's been very exciting, and I think the future with climate change, with mobility solutions of different forms, offers huge opportunity for us.
You're clearly giving the Olas and Aethers a run for their money. But Roshni, you decided to focus on education, you're passionate about wildlife, you're chairperson of HCL Tech, but you're not involved in the day-to-day part of the business. So again, what guided your choices and where you are today? And I must thank you for making it, because I know it's very, very hard to make you talk at a public platform. We've been trying for years to get Roshni's time. We're so happy she's here.
Thank you. Thank you. No, I think my personal choices, I was just reflecting, Soumya, on what you were saying. I think when I went into business school, I think Shiv's focus was that I would be financially independent, but how do I become financially literate? And I think that was the reason why I pivoted from film and media to go to a business school. And I often tell this story that my first class in business school was statistics. And the professor asked that, is there anybody in this class who's never worked on an Excel spreadsheet? And only my hand went up. But that was a true fact. So for me, it was 2 years of many firsts. And when I came back to India after that, the first place that I did work at in HCL was in finance. And I mean, education, wildlife, all that is in the foundation. It's separate than what I do at HCL. But and by the next year, by age 28, I had already been made the CEO of the holding company.
That's right.
So, so I think that I don't have an exciting personal story because, like I said, our family office is me and Shikhar, my husband. That's it. I have no siblings, so it was just swim in the deep ocean, trial by fire, go for it, and then and that was 2008. Now it's 23. So I think there's been a lot of learnings along the way.
Right. Before I hand it to Soumya, Puneet, how has your journey been different from Roshni and Sudarshan?
So we had a joint family business, and when I joined, I was the youngest. It was my uncle, my father, and my cousin brother. And I think the first thing was to earn credibility. We were a multi, industry business, cement, sugar, refractories. And my father told me that, you have to, we know manufacturing, but we don't know sales very well because it was license Raj. We were a product of the license Raj economy, and I joined in '97. So I had to literally shift. We had one cement plant in Tamil Nadu, and I had to shift 3,000 kilometers away from, Delhi, and, go and understand the market, where I used to go in, scooter or a three-wheeler to just understand, how cement is sold. And I think, it was hard to battle mindsets because it was an efficient company, successful company. But, how do you, get new ideas accepted? So, we launched 2 new brands, and one failed, one succeeded. And then I told my father that we should expand. And he asked me, what will it cost? And this is 1999. And I told him it's going to cost 500 crores to expand. And he asked me, who's going to do it? So I raised my hand. I said, I'm going to do it. So he turns around and tells me, I can't put 500 crores behind you. I said, why? So he said, because you have no credibility. So I said, okay, then what do I need to earn credibility? He says, I'll give you 2 crores of my personal money. no questions asked. You go and do something. So I quit the family business and I started a internet company with a friend of mine from engineering school, and we started a job site called jobsahead.com, and Sanjeev was the big daddy in that business. We were like new in it, and I think
he continues to be the big daddy.
He continues to be the big daddy, absolutely. Yeah. So I think we went through our ups and downs, but we raised some private capital. Then there was a internet bust, and we learned a lot because environment changed very, very quickly, and you had to adapt. So a lot of interesting learnings in terms of raising capital, in terms of building a team, in terms of adapting to a very volatile environment. And then I think we sold the company in 2004. And again, how do you plan your exit strategy? And if I look back in retrospect, we sold the company at 6 times earnings. When Naukri went public 3 years later at 100 times earnings. So probably it would have been better to merge with, Sanjeev's company, and which was an option at that time. But we wrongly wanted liquidity because we had private equity on our cap table. So I think lots of learnings in terms of starting, in terms of adapting, in terms of selling. And I think then at least we didn't lose money. So I got credibility, and I joined the family business, and we got much more freedom to.
That's a fascinating story. I didn't know the connection between Sanjeev and Dalmia, but Soumya, you have.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a question to Sudarshan and to Puneet on family values. The family values, the legacy, because so much of that is part of the family business DNA. When you're looking at, let's say, modernization, or you're looking at newer things for your respective businesses, how big a role does that play when you're assessing some of these? And instances where you may have stepped back from a business because it didn't fit in with the family values or ethos.
So I think it's a great question. First of all, I believe that to, the way nature runs, you have to, preserve, you have to create, preserve and destroy. So I think it's very important to, articulate clearly what you're going to preserve and what you're going to destroy, because, you have to also destroy something to create something new. So I think what is really important is you have to preserve values, you have to preserve the core that defines you, and you have to also destroy some legacy mindsets or some bureaucratic systems. And I think if you can articulate that well and ensure that you communicate enough with people, the journey becomes easier. It is not always perfect because there are some people who will always get threatened. But I think it just becomes a little bit easier because you have some critical mass. So I think articulation, communication, and constant perseverance is very important, because I think the world is changing very fast, whether it is geopolitical issues, whether it's technology, whether it's climate change, and I think you have to be very flexible in terms of creating a strategy. No static strategy can work in today's world. So I think therefore this is important. I think second thing is talent. And I think what we have learned is family businesses have a big advantage because they can build a very sensitive and caring culture. So I think we have learned that you have to treat professionals like family members, and you have to treat family members like professionals. So I think that works really well. If you can, be dispassionate in terms of evaluating the skill sets of family members, that helps. And if you can, give a caring culture to professionals, that helps a lot.
I think the values form the bedrock of everything. So that's what creates the business, that's what gives you the differentiation, that's what gives you the ability to grow. So I think that is the basis. At the same time, I think the context changes, you have to interpret it in a different way based on the times today, climate change, it's a VUCA world. But I think to address those issues in line with our own values, and for each successful business there are many, and for us it's, my father's always emphasized quality and customer focus and investing in technology. But at the same time, to apply this in the current context and embrace these opportunities, while also building new capabilities that are relevant, whether it's digital or other capabilities today, AI, I think that mix is very important, and that's what I try to do.
Great, thank you.
Roshni, who has been your biggest influence or your mentor? I mean, Shiv Nadar would be the easy answer, but anyone else who's really influenced you, or who's sort of had the maximum influence on the way you operate as a leader?
Yeah, I mean, my parents, for sure. My life partner, for sure. And I would say, I call him Ambi Uncle, but Srinivasan, he sits,
Reddington's.
Yes. He sits on the board of HCL Tech, but he was also my father's roommate in college. So I've known him all my life, and yeah. So I think just those
Can
people.
you elaborate on how each of them influenced you, whether it's Shikhar or it's your dad or Mr. Srinivasan of Reddington?
Well, I think Shiv for making me feel uncomfortable at all times. Ambi Uncle for making me feel comfortable on all times. The yin and the yang, because they've known each other for so long. So they, and I've known them individually, of course, in a relationship, but otherwise also it's so long. And, my mother, who's the crazy Punjabi amongst us all, and so she's pretty dynamic herself, and she's the oldest person participating in the Asian Games next week. She plays
That's
bridge.
amazing.
She plays bridge for India, and she's the captain of the open team. So she's she left for Morocco yesterday. She's playing the World Bridge Championships there, again as the captain of the Indian open team.
Wow.
So-
Our best wishes to her.
Yeah.
She's
yeah.
also a huge art connoisseur.
She's an art collector, but
Yeah.
bridge came much early. Art came much later.
Do you play bridge as well?
No, she would beat me hollow. So I did not manage to learn. And then, of course, I think Shikhar as well, professionally, because as I said, our family office at the moment is just two of us in the sense who you would consider next gen. And, we, at the Holdco, we have a balance sheet almost the same size as HCL Technologies, or if not bigger. So I think that there is, and we have one or two companies outside HCL Technologies, Shikhar being the CEO and chair of HCL Healthcare, which
That's
are
right.
our own private companies. So I think that if I was to just compare to the two gentlemen on my left and right, I think we're probably in the early stages of a family
Right.
development, or however that plays itself out. So I think, but it's interesting because family businesses across the world as well as in India over so many generations. There's actually, when you look, we're very privileged because we've seen a lot of successes, and there's a lot of failures to learn from as well.
Right.
Thank you for that, Roshni. And Sudarshan, my question is now to you. You have grown up with two very accomplished parents who have been extremely successful entrepreneurs in their own right. What has it been like growing up in that environment? And also, how have you handled the burden of expectations?
I think I'm very lucky and fortunate, and you have to learn from each of them different things which each of them are good at, and then try to do your best. You can't keep thinking about the expectations, you just have to try and do your best.
Anything in particular for your mom
My
that
mother
you've
told
learned
me
from
when I
your
was
dad?
very young not to drive the car looking at somebody else.
Great advice.
But did you have a difficult choice? I mean, did you always want to be part of the TVS side, or did your mom say, there's also TAFE? How did you handle that?
I think motorcycles are a lot of fun, so I got that excitement.
Question for you, Puneet. Had it not been the family business, what would have been an alternative career for you?
I went to business school
He
in
almost became an internet entrepreneur.
I went to business school at IIM Bangalore, and I was planning to join McKinsey. But I went and did some research, and I spoke to a McKinsey partner who really opened my eyes. Some of my friends are sitting here, and they're in consulting as well. But consultants draw 2x2 matrix to make decisions. And they said, you should look at two dimensions. One is ability to make impact, and second is free time. So they said on both dimensions, McKinsey will be low and low, and your family business would be high and high. So they said, if you want free time and ability to make larger impact, join your family business. So I think it was a decision which really helped me.
I don't know if there are McKinsey consultants in the room, but that's a great insight. Actually, I have the same question for Roshni and Sudarshan. When you sort of looked at career choices, you mentioned you dabbled with media and everything. What were the other alternatives that you considered before deciding that, this is what I want to drive as chairperson of HCL Tech, this is what I want to do at the family office? These are, things that I'm passionate about. Were there other things that you considered?
No, not at all. Because I think, it doesn't matter if I'm a woman or not a woman. I was the only child. And as Shiv was growing HCL, it's actually very interesting. I was just looking at some data today that in 2004, he made Vineet Nair president. In 2006, he made him CEO. HCL Tech actually listed in just 2000. So in 6 years, as a founder, he already stepped off CEO. And today he's 78, so that was almost 16 years ago. And since then, HCL Tech has already had 3 CEOs. So I think that it was fairly clear in his particular head also that he was stepping off from an active CEO role and focusing much more on the holdco and the kind of governance and the kind of management that is going to require. So, it's great that, I could do whatever I wanted in undergrad. It was great that I got to work a couple of years outside just to be able to learn, I think, just ethics and discipline of working. That's it. And then I was moving back anyway. And like I said, when I moved back, I started working in finance. And again, it's not till I came on to the board at HCL Tech, which was in 2013, was I ever in a situation where I was actually, Shiv was my reporting manager. So I think that it just evolved, and I think we're fortunate enough that at the same time, he started building the Shiv Nada Foundation in 1994, so that's
Right.
quite early. And by now we've spent almost $1 billion in the foundation, and we've opened the schools and the universities. So it was nice because I think that for an alternative to every day at HCL, there was also different institutions that were getting built out that one could be much more entrepreneurial with and be a part of. At the end of the day, I think it doesn't matter if it's non-profit, for-profit. If you're going to build institutions which are going to outlast the founders, then there are just certain fundamentals of business and corporate governance which should be the same across the board. So I think, yeah.
Right. So Darshan, the same question for you. Is it something that you always wanted to do? Did you go through a phase where you wanted to do something else?
I really was excited about motorcycles from when I was very young, and I think I got the opportunity to pursue that. So that's what I always. So that's what I always wanted to do. But if for a moment I had to do something else, I studied a little bit of real estate at Wharton, and a couple of my classmates whom I've invested with have set up very good real estate businesses in the US. So maybe I would have done that.
Wow. Okay.
So, just a question now to all three of you. As parents yourselves now, how are you thinking about communicating the family business to your next generation? How are you looking at it at this point?
I think my parents did a very good job of communicating it to us, so we'll hopefully try to do the same. But I only thought of that in the last 2 seconds because my daughter is only 5, so I'm more focused on having a good time with her.
I mean, my kids are almost 11 and almost 8, and Shiv and Kiran communicated to me one dinner in London, and the next day I was doing my GMAT and applying to business school. So, yeah, we'll take it as it comes.
So my kids are much older, 19 and 16. And I think, as a parent, I would want them to explore and discover what they want to do and what they like. I think this comes with a huge privilege. It also gives you an opportunity to discover what you are good at and what you want to do. So I wouldn't want to burden them with, joining the family business if they don't want to, because I think, listed companies require, in a very competitive and volatile world, the best talent. If they are passionate, definitely a platform is available to them. But if they want to do something else, I would, as a parent, want them to fly and chart their own path.
And how important is it to not work in the family business before coming into it?
I think personally it helped me a lot, because in a family business you're in a little bit of an artificial bubble. Everybody is, looking up to you. Some people are, resisting you. So it's a little artificial, kind of a polarized world. So I think it helped me personally. But at the same time, I also feel family businesses can offer an excellent training ground. You can get a very holistic perspective. You can, deep dive wherever you want to. So I think both options are good. It depends on how you, how your mindset is and what you make of the opportunity.
Any comments?
I worked directly with my father from the day after school or college. And I had a great opportunity and I enjoyed it. So I think I can relate to the second part of what Puneet said, but ultimately it's up to each one to make their own choice.
Right. I also want to understand from the three of you, how have your family values influenced your philanthropic giving? Are there social initiatives that you're particularly proud of? I mean, maybe Roshni can start and Sudarshan and Puneet can.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the foundation was started in 1994, and Shiv set up the SSN College of Engineering in Chennai.
Which is one of India's top colleges.
Private engineering colleges, yes. And till 1994 to 2008, there was no action on the Shiv Nada Foundation, but just building that institution, and rightly so. And in 2008, right after Shikhar and I got married, both of us were quite interested, so that we wanted to also do stuff in addition to the work that we were doing. So in between 2008 to 2011, we opened the 2 Vidyagyan schools, the 3 Shiv Nada schools, and my mother launched the Kiran Nada Museum of Art. So within a span of 3 years. And then, I think between the 4 of us, we sort of decided that, Shiv would manage the universities whenever he had time. Shikhar would do the Shiv Nada schools. I'd do Vidyagyan, and my mother would do Kiran Nada Museum of Art. Then Shiv retired, so now Shikhar is the chancellor of the universities and the schools, and I'm still Vidyagyan. So it's, yeah, we're very proud of the foundation, and Vidyagyan's close to me. His turf is Shiv Nada University and Shiv Nada schools. So, and my mother's is Kiran Nada Museum of Art. So, yeah.
I hear it's really tough to get an admission into Shiv Nada school. So, a few of my friends told me that they opened up in Chennai recently and it got over in half a day or something. Some new record for the school. So, Sudarshan?
I think contributing has been back to society has been an important part of our group culture, and
absolutely.
My father personally spends a lot of time. But one thing that I think is very important, which he did and which we are trying to follow through long before it was fashionable, was sustainability in terms of water treatment, in terms of having nature reserves within our plants, in terms of afforesting large hills. So I think this is some things which we have done, which was perhaps a bit ahead of its time, and something which we really need to continue given the global climate change challenges that are there.
So I had a question around succession. Were there well-laid succession plans for each of you? Or was this something that you kind of found your way into? How did the family work the succession plan?
I think in our case, it was, in my generation, it was my brother and I. And I think there was no formal succession planning. And we wanted to professionalize the company, so we really got CEOs to run each business. And we defined our role as more of a strategic. But I think it's okay. Got it. I think we made our own constitution, we put our own rules, so there was not a formal process, but we put some formality into it, and it evolved out of our own experiences and some guidance from our well-wishers. So Mr. Subbayya from Murugappa Group, he guided us. They've been in like 5 generations, multiple businesses. Mr. Gurumurthy, from looked at fights in many Marwadi families. So I think he also guided us that, how to ensure that you can guard yourself against, potential conflicts. So I think we had some very good advisors, and, we had some, very open and frank discussions. So it evolved out of our own, a customized solution which we thought would fit our situation.
Yeah, so I think for HCL, if some of you know Shiv, there's nothing he ever does which is not deliberate. But I think that succession planning for him probably started much before I came in. So as I said, that by 2004, he was obviously looking at himself also out of the CEO role. So he was looking within HCL for a CEO to succeed him, which happened in 2006, at which point he became Chief Strategy Officer, and he continued to be Chairman. And then in 2008, when I returned, he said, you hang on around the holding company and understand management. And in 2013, brought me onto the board. And then by 2020 or 19, I think he stepped off being chair and the board, and by which time me being on the board had already seen 3 CEO transitions and 2 CFO transitions. So I think that, in HCL's case, the succession planning probably started much before considering family. Sudarshan?
I think in my case also it was a bit more unstructured and evolutionary, but yet with a clear direction and purpose. And I think there was a very good management team, of course, already. And it was more a question of playing the role of the entrepreneur and learning how it was done and how to play that role and how to grow from there.
So each one of you spoke about sustainability. And what we see in most family offices today is that the next gen is actually leading the charge on sustainability. Could you share a little bit of light in terms of what each of you may be doing in that space?
I think in our case, climate change and sustainability is really at the core of our business in terms of electrifications, in terms of the supply chains related to it. So for us, one of the major initiatives has been the huge investment we've made across electric mobility and connectivity and digital to enable that. In terms of, look at electric bicycles, electric scooters, electric motorcycles, which is the main focus, 3-wheelers, cargo, tomorrow electric Nortons as well. We'll have the complete range of electric mobility, and therefore I think in our business it's very directly relevant. And we see it as a huge opportunity which we are investing behind and embracing.
Because when, I know when Waterfield did an impact assessment, we saw that one of the most important areas that the next gen were focusing on was actually on climate change. So they were very clear that if they could look at more opportunities there, then that's really where they wanted to be. So would love to hear what you have to say, Roshni.
So again, I think that a big reason why that's also happening is because of timing and the ecosystem which is getting developed. So I just think that us as the next generation is perhaps more aware, and there are more solutions out there. As you mentioned, in India, they're finding their way much more slowly, but the ecosystem outside in the world is much more developed, and I think globally we're probably a lot more well-traveled and exposed and looking at partners and looking at solutions. So, of course, across the HCL Group, the HCL Foundation, ESG as a publicly listed company, especially in the tech space, we're really scrutinized on that, not just on our own, but also now in almost every RFP that we get for a business, there are at least 10 pages of just ESG. So, you know, it's also the environment which is developing. So, of course, what we're doing in terms of, you know, water or carbon as part of the foundation and the Habitats Trust with nature is the philanthropy and the CSR part of it. But I think there's also integrating ESG and climate in business operating models, which has also become the need of the hour. And that's still an evolving space, but there are lots of opportunities there. And it's one that I think globally markets are looking at much more closely. So the timing is right.
So would you also have, just as you are expected to fill in a checklist, would you also have a checklist when you're making those investments from the ESG lens? Is that something that you look at?
Yeah, that's something that we would be looking at as well. We do it a lot more in the foundations at the moment, and the foundations are very large in their commitments. And but yeah, I think, for example, I just committed 15 million for the Aquapreneurs Innovation Initiative at the World Economic Forum, and every year we are giving grants to 10 aquapreneurs, so people working in freshwater entrepreneurship across the world for the next 5 years. So by end of 5 years, we'll have 50 entrepreneurs. So these are not social, these are businesses across the world, and so we've given 5 last year. And so I think that, like I said, I think India is still evolving, so that's why it just happened to be a global fund, if I may, but yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think India is a champion in sustainability even before it became fashionable for the world to use it. In every household, I can see that people recycle. I mean, we've worn clothes, you know, which our cousins have worn. You know, people are frugal about using resources. Even computers, we don't throw away. We donate it to some, you know, a village or some school. So I think we have been a, you know, great champion in being frugal about using resources. Also, I think this is a civilization which worships nature. We worship trees, we worship rivers, we worship, you know, sun and the moon. So anybody who worships nature, you know, uses it but doesn't abuse it. And I think if I look at, you know, every village, every city in India, I think there are, you know, great examples. In our business specifically, I think we are in cement, which produces like 7% of the world's CO2. So it's a very, you know, climate from a carbon footprint is a very heavy business. So we are going to do 100% renewable energy by 2030. We are trying to reduce fuel consumption. We are producing low carbon cements. And India is the lowest in the world in terms of carbon footprint. And Dalmia is one of the lowest in India. So we are one of the lowest in the world in terms of our carbon footprint, and we take we are very proud of that. Also in our sugar business, we are making ethanol, which is a biofuel and which will replace, you know, diesel and petrol. So I think climate change is a very important part of every business. And as Roshni said, as Sudarshan said, I think all of us have to play our role, not just because it is a business imperative, but also because it's a responsibility that we have towards our planet.
With that, I think it's time to wrap this very insightful discussion. Thank you very much, Sudarshan Venu, Roshni Nadar Malhotra, as well as Puneet Dalmia, for your insights, for sharing your personal journey. A huge round of applause for them. Clearly, the future of India is in very safe hands. Thank you, Soumya, for co-moderating that with me. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my privilege to welcome... Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my privilege to welcome our chief guest for the evening, the Honorable Union Minister Piyush Goyal, a passionate advocate for innovation and entrepreneurship. Honorable Minister Goyal is the Minister of Commerce and Industry, Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, Textiles, and leader of the Rajya Sabha. He's also held the portfolio of Minister of Railways, Finance, Corporate Affairs, Coal, Power, New and Renewable Energy, and Mines previously. In his tenure as Minister of Commerce and Industry, India has consistently scaled new heights in exports. He led the signing of a free trade agreement with the UAE, the fastest ever negotiated FTA globally, and the India-Australia Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement, which was India's first agreement with a developed country after a decade. He also oversaw the launch of production-linked incentive schemes to bring manufacturing at the center stage and emphasize its significance in driving growth and creating jobs. As Minister of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, he led the implementation of the world's largest food security program, the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, by distribution of free food grains to nearly 80 crore people over 2 years, providing support to the poor, vulnerable, weaker sections of society who were affected the most during the COVID-19 pandemic. Please join me in welcoming the Honourable Minister to deliver the keynote address and felicitate our winners this evening.
Thank you very much, Madam. Though I think ministers would do with a little less comments. We need a lot more work to do, so I think you should keep the introduction a little shorter. And don't make the people feel that we are looking for that kind of a compliment. We're only doing our job, as is each one of the entrepreneurs sitting in this room. Congratulations to all the winners of the Family Business Awards. Truly a matter of pride and a very fitting endorsement. I went through the list and I do believe a very, very robust process must have gone through, because the list demonstrates businesses which have shown huge passion in their work, businesses who have added tremendous value for their stakeholders, businesses which have been focused on sustainability, as we just heard, businesses which have been conscious of their social obligations, and the list of winners today demonstrate all of these elements. And a big, big congratulations to all the award winners this evening. While of course awards do help give you recognition, they also cast a lot of responsibility on you, because the expectations from the people will only increase. There will be more demand on you. There will be more hope and expectation. But I have no doubt that each of the award winners will do us proud in the years to come. Of course, I also have no doubt that these awards will encourage many more who may have not been selected today, but maybe near about as deserving as the award winners today. And therefore, this should also hopefully be a great source of inspiration for all the other businesses run by eminent families, irrespective of whether they are in the small scale, they are startups, whether they are medium or large scale. I think every business, big or small, is contributing to the great India story that we are all privileged to be a part of. Friends, the Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, has over the last 9 years given a very decisive, strong leadership to India, preparing the framework, preparing the ground, creating all the right fundamentals that we need as a nation to rapidly progress from a developing nation to a developed nation. All of you are well aware of the achievements of the last 9 years. I won't labor at length on those issues, but I would like you to reflect on where we were a decade ago and where we are as we meet at Oberoi this evening. Of course, we all remember that we were one of the 5 fragile countries, fragile 5 countries weak economies. It was around the same time in 2013, if my memory is serving me right, that we went in for the FCNRB deposits of $35 billion at very high interest cost, just to shore up the Indian rupee and protect our economy from going down the rapid slide in which we were at that point of time. If you look back, we had used the fiscal deficits very, very indiscriminately at that point of time, not to create assets, but to literally pay our revenue bills as a nation. And therefore, while we lived in a mirage in 2008 or 9 post the Lehman crisis, that India is doing very well, we only landed up putting our neck deeper into the sand, with inflation rates going into double digit, 12-13% inflation becoming the order of the day, thanks to the large fiscal deficits. We had high interest costs, which businesses had to pay for. The exports were almost stagnant. Our foreign currency reserves, as I mentioned, were in a crisis and needed to be shored up with artificially high interest rates, which ultimately was a cost to the people of India. And in summation, the confidence of the world on India and Indian businesses was at the nadir. At that point of time, I remember business people going around the world with an Indian passport were not receiving the kind of respect that a nation of the size and scale and potential that we have in India truly deserves. When we came into government in 2014, there was a lot of suggestions coming from all quarters that we should take out a white paper of the India story as we had inherited in 2014. There was a lot of clamor from well-meaning friends, including from the media, that the world and the people of India should know the real depth of the problem, the seriousness of the economic crisis that the nation was facing. I remember some deliberations within government also at that point of time. But Prime Minister Narendra Modi took a firm stand that there shall not be a white paper, there shall not be any information flow to the rest of the world about what the problems of India are, because he truly believed in governments in continuity. He believed that when we came into government, whatever we had inherited, we would set it right, but we would not expose that to the world, because by exposing that, the situation that was on hand, we would only be weakening our journey towards resolving the problems. In fact, a white paper would have been very good for us politically at that point of time, but would have been at the cost or to the detriment of Indian businesses and the Indian economy. Instead of crying over the situation then, I can say it today because we've crossed the hump. We don't have any fear of that causing any distress. This India story today is completely different from what we had inherited. But at that point of time, should we have cried over the large amount of oil bonds that we inherited and we had to repay at high interest costs? Should we have cried about the foreign exchange crisis or the borrowings at high rates, which were going to be a stress to our government post 2014? If we were going to cry about high inflation rates, high interest rates, if we were going to be talking about the rapidly falling economic growth, if we were going to be talking about the small amount of foreign direct investment or faltering exports, it would have been a big disservice to a nation trying to come out of a crisis and making India relevant in the world economy. Instead of that, all our energies were focused on strengthening the India story. All our efforts were focused on taking the basic needs that this nation needed, that the people of India needed, that businesses in India were craving for, and addressing these problems so that every Indian not only is a proud Indian passport holder, as each one of us are today, not only is every Indian an empowered Indian with all his basic needs met as we are today, not only is the economy in good shape with large foreign exchange reserves, nearly $600 billion today, with a growing economy, the fastest growing large economy in the world, with inflation, despite the little hiccups that we are facing today in a short term, at the macro, a decade of controlled inflation. In fact, I mentioned at an earlier engagement that I had in another program just before this, that if, and Moneycontrol is known for its research, so I would urge Moneycontrol to research the India story over 75 years. And I dare say, this 9-year period has offered India and all Indians the lowest inflation rate over a 9-year period that we had ever experienced in the past. And the world today recognizes India as the largest opportunity for Indian businesses and for investors around the world. All of this has been possible because of all of you, ladies and gentlemen, who have contributed with ideas, who have contributed with your work, who have contributed in creating economic value, who have worked to create jobs in India, who have worked to bring the best of technologies in India, who have worked to make India digitally empowered, connected with modern infrastructure, who have brought independence to us in terms of our dependence on foreign goods being reduced. And I think it's the collective effort of Indian businesses in a big way that has supplemented the government's own efforts to both to take welfare to the people of India, to empower the people of India, and to create the ecosystem that is the basic need, the basic fundamental on which India aspires to become a developed nation by 2047. In fact, I just mentioned to colleagues from Moneycontrol before I came in that this is a 30-30-30, a 30 by 30 by 30 journey that we are all privileged to be a part of. India today is enjoying the fruits of our demographic dividend, an average population which is under 30. All estimates seem to suggest that for the next 30 years, we'll continue to be a young population, below 30. And in this next 30 years, at the very least, we see the Indian economy growing from $3.5 trillion to a $35 trillion economy, adding over $30 trillion to our GDP. And friends, we have very eminent business persons here. Imagine a growth story from 3.5 trillion to 30 trillion or 35 trillion is the world's largest business opportunity that history has ever seen. There is no other comparable story with this kind of a delta of opportunity, with this kind of a growth journey that we have embarked upon and which is eminently doable. I've done my maths, I've done all the modeling, I as in the government of India has done all the various scenario planning, the modeling, and every indicator, and the actions taken towards this journey give us the courage of conviction to be able to say that this is going to happen, that this is the path that India is going to traverse over the next 25, 30 years. And friends, Indian family-owned businesses are the bulwark of this success story. India has traditionally been known to have entrepreneurs of great eminence, of great capability, of great understanding for generations and centuries. I mean, for that matter, if one was to go back in history even to the period of Maharaja Agrasen or to Samrat Ashok, businesses in India, entrepreneurship in India was recognized and respected centuries ago. Maharaja Agrasen had started with the philosophy that anybody who came into his kingdom from outside, A, he would welcome with open arms, B, he would have the entire population or the people in that village or the town contribute 1 rupee, big amount at that point of time, and 1 brick to this new family to help him stand up in life. That brick would help him make his home. That 1 rupee would help him start out in his life, maybe with a big or small business, as an entrepreneur with some work, hold him in good stead in the initial period, often difficult period. But ultimately, he created a world full of entrepreneurs who have spread out across the length and breadth of India and the world, who are today making India proud. And I say this only as a concept because, in a manner of speaking, that's precisely what this government has attempted to do over the last 9 years. If you look at the various welfare measures, some of which were just recounted before I came, India today provided nearly 40 million families with a free home. India ensured that every single household, every single farmer in the country gets an electricity connection either in his home or his farm. Prime Minister Modi was very focused that we have to ensure health care for everybody in the country. And we launched much before COVID the Ayushman Bharat Yojana, by which today nearly 600 million people are eligible for free health care. 600 million is not a small number. Obamacare could not handle a few million and collapsed. We are looking after 600 million people's healthcare needs. During COVID and now post-COVID too, 800 million people are getting free food grains. Of course, during COVID it was doubled up to ensure that even in difficult times, nobody goes hungry. And we can proudly say the country today does not have a single starvation death in such a vast country, such a vast population. And I can keep recounting many, many, many programs. Digital connectivity to the length and breadth of India. 4G, much smarter, much more efficient than the most developed nations have. Now 5G going to nearly 125 cities in the next 12 months, ultimately going across the country. My favorite, and something I believe was the need of the hour 75 years ago, but government after government failed to meet a basic need of every Indian. The over 120 million toilets that were made over the last few years, so that no child in this country, no girl, no sister, no daughter, no mother ever had to go to the field or face the indignity of not having a toilet at home. Basic need. Of course, some of our political opponents were very disdainful when Prime Minister Modi talked about Swachh Bharat or an open defecation-free Bharat from the ramparts of the Red Fort in his very first address in 2014. But wherever in the world anybody asks me what is the most important program of this government, it's not the large amount of FDI we got, it's not the massive 55% growth in exports between 21 and 23. It's not necessarily all the various programs to take water connections to every single home, electricity, cooking gas, homes for every poor family in the country. I believe giving our girl child sanitary pads at 1 rupee and a free toilet in every single home in this country has been the biggest game changer when it comes to social welfare and empowerment of our people. And to all the business persons here, today we have a set of people, young boys and girls, whose basic needs having been taken care of, digitally connected through television and internet to the rest of the world, full of aspiration, full of drive, fire in the belly, wanting to do more, wanting to contribute more, wanting to work hard, desirous of achievement, desirous of the good things of life. Show me any other part of the world where more and more women coming into the workforce like we have in India will sell more washing machines or dishwashers than India will in the next 10 or 15 years. There's no other place in the world. Show me any other country where the auto industry is going to grow faster than India, given the huge aspiration. Our two-wheelers wanting to transit to an electric two-wheeler, then to a four-wheeler passenger vehicle, SUVs. Everybody is aspirational. We just saw the report that came out a couple of days ago talking about the growing middle class. And with the purchasing power parity being what it is in India, for all my friends running family businesses, this is our time under the sun. This is our time to grow. This is our time to invest. This is our time to expand. This is our time to support each other so that we can collectively become an empowered nation, a nation which cares for each other, which cares for 140 crore Indians, creates value, but also looks after social growth and inclusive growth, which creates value for shareholders, but also is equally focused on sustainability. And therefore, let's not let any opportunity go by. We can invite investment, we can invite technology, but ultimately, it's each one of you, the Indian businessman, the Indian entrepreneur, our Indian startups, who are going to lead this journey in the next 30 years to make India a $35 trillion economy, where every family is sporting a $20,000 per capita income. Every person is having a $20,000 per capita income, where every family is contributing to India's growth story. And it is this journey where I have the confidence that our family-run businesses are going to make all the difference. You have it in you. You have competent managements. Your children are doing us proud. And I'm sure in the years ahead, we are all going to collectively make India, as the Onida ad had said, owner's pride, neighbor's envy. I've just got the Moneycontrol publication here. Optimism is in the air and spirits are high. There is a spring in the step, a newfound confidence in India. Thank you, Moneycontrol, for your support to this optimism. I am an optimist. I believe each one of you is equally optimistic, equally confident, equally ready and willing to fulfill your duties to make India the global superpower, make India amongst the top 3 economies of the world, and ensure that every Indian has a better future. Our generations ahead will remember this generation as the people who created the India story. Congratulations to all of you. Thank you.
A huge round of applause for the Minister for that very energizing and motivating address. I'm sure it'll motivate all of us to double down on the India story. And as the Minister said, Moneycontrol is very bullish on India. In fact, we have a campaign going on called MC Bullish on India, where we've documented every aspect of India's rise. May I welcome the Minister back on stage to felicitate the winners this evening, the moment we've all been waiting for this evening. Let's kick it off then with the winners in the super category.
In the category of super, annual turnover up to 2,000 crore rupees.
And the first winner is?
In the category of super, most innovative, disruptive and transformative. The winner is Tega Industries Limited.
Please welcome on stage Mehul Mohanka, MD and Group CEO, Tega Industries. We can do with better applause. These people are the lifeblood, the pride of our country, the family businesses. Congratulations, sir. Let's take a look at our next winner.
In the category of super, best governance, the winner is Apcotex Industries Limited.
And to collect the award, we have Abhirat Choksi, MD, Apcotex Industries. Can we look at our next winner in the category?
In the category of super, best family business, the winner is Borosil Limited.
Please welcome on stage Shrivar Kheruka, Managing Director, Borosil Limited. Huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on to the mega category.
In the category of mega, annual turnover between 2,000 and 4,000 crore rupees.
And can we look at our first winner, please?
In the category of mega, most innovative, disruptive and transformative.
welcome on stage Mr. Prem Bhajanka, Executive Director, Century Plyboards. Is Mr. Prem Bhajanka here? Okay, we'll wait for him. Let's move on to the next category, please. The next award, the Best Governance Award.
In the category of Mega Best Governance, the winner is Route Mobile Limited.
Please welcome on stage Sandeep Gupta, the Chairman and Director at Route Mobile Limited. And time for our next winner.
In the category of Mega Best Business led by a woman, Jury Select, the winner is TVS Sri Chakra Limited.
Please welcome Ms. Shai Mutana, COO, TVS Supply Chain Solutions. Looks like there are many members of the TVS family in the house today. I believe Mr. Prem Bhajanka is back. So, sir, if you can come to collect your award. Can we have Mr. Prem Bhajanka's award, please? And the final winner in this category, the Best Family Business.
In the category of Mega Best Family Business, the winner is Minda Corporation Limited.
Please welcome Mr. Ashok Minda, Chairman, Akash Minda, Executive Director, and Kanika Minda on stage, please. With that, we move on to the Giga category.
In the category of Giga, annual turnover over 4,000 crore rupees.
And let's take a look at the first winner.
In the category of Giga, most innovative, disruptive, and transformational Jury Select, the winner is Havells India Limited.
Please welcome Anil Rai Gupta, the Chairman and Managing Director, as well as Amit Kumar Gupta, the Director. Havells has become a household name. A huge round of applause to both of them. Let's take a look at our next winner.
In the category of Giga, Best Business led by a woman, the winner is Thermax Limited.
And to collect the award on behalf of Thermax, may I please welcome Mr. Jasmeet Bhatia, Executive President and CHRO. Now time for the Best Family Business in the Giga category.
In the category of Giga, Best Family Business, the winner is Muthoot Finance Limited.
Please welcome Shri Alexander George Muthoot, Joint Managing Director, Muthoot Group, a household name not just in Kerala but the whole of India. A huge round of applause. With that, we move on to our next category, philanthropy.
In the category of Philanthropy,
And the winner is?
in the category of Philanthropy, the winner is Dholakia Foundation.
Please welcome on stage Tulsi Dholakia, Director, and Pintu Dholakia, CEO. Let's keep the applause going for all our winners. such an honor to get the award from the Union Commerce Minister. With that, we move on to the next one, the Jury Special Award.
Special recognition by the jury.
And the winner is?
A special recognition by the jury for most enduring business goes to Gujarat Tea Processors and Packers Limited.
Please welcome on stage Mr. Rasesh Desai, Managing Director, Paras Desai, Executive Director, and Parag Desai, Executive Director. With that, we come to the final category of winners. Mr. Goyal, it is remarkable how you seem to have a personal connect with each of the winners today.
I know almost all. There was not a single winner here.
That's great to hear. A huge round of applause for everyone. No, not at all. I can assure you our jury members are sitting right here. But we now come to the final category of winners, editorial recognitions.
Editorial recognitions.
And the first winner in this category.
Editorial recognition for Woman Business Leader
Goes to
the award for Woman Business Leader goes to Roshni Nava Alok, ex-director.
a bigger round of applause, please. The next category.
Editorial recognition for Next Gen Leader.
And the winner is?
The award for Next Gen Leader goes to Sudarshan Venu, TVS Motor Company Limited.
In fact, we have Sudarshan's parents, Mr. Venu Srinivasan, Mallika Srinivasan. It'll be great if you can come up on stage for a photograph with him. Tara, if you can join him as well. And his wife Tara, if you can join him as well. This is a photo I'm sure Sudarshan will frame and keep on his desk. Please join him on stage. Congrats.
There's one other element which I'd like to share with you about Mallika Srinivasan. All of us have done well in life, we've achieved so many things. On the clarion call of the Prime Minister that we should also contribute to government. We should also contribute, once the children take over, we should give some time to help government do good for the country. And since Sudarshan has ably taken over the business, Venu Srinivasan has completely devoted his life to the upliftment of villages in Tamil Nadu. But many of us do that. What Mallika Srinivasan has done is unique. She has agreed at the request of the Honorable Prime Minister to head the Public Enterprises Selection Board, devotes her full time in the midst of COVID, she took up this responsibility so that we can have better management talent, better management teams running our public sector undertakings, which ultimately contribute a lot to your businesses also. So I think that's a great contribution to India's growth story.
You know, Gen Zs talk about the FIRE movement, financially independent, retire early. And here we have stalwarts who work and work and work and believe in giving back, not just to their business, but to the country, but to the society. A huge round of applause for Mr. Venu Srinivasan and Mallika Srinivasan. You're a huge inspiration to all of us. And with that, well, we've saved the best for last. Let's look at our final winner this evening.
Editorial recognition for Lifetime Achievement Award.
And the winner is?
The honor of the Lifetime Achievement Award goes to Dilip Sanghi, Sun Pharmaceutical Industries Limited.
A huge round of applause for the one and only Mr. Dilip Sanghi. I believe Mr. Dilip Sanghi's son is also here. If you can come up on stage, please. Mr. Alok Sanghi. That's a great moment. Mr. Sangvi, it's very, very hard to pin you down, so I'm going to request you to please give us a small acceptance speech.
So, thank you, Moneycontrol editors and the jury for bestowing this recognition on me. And also, I think it's appropriate that we are focused on family-run businesses because the country and the key employment generator in the country is entrepreneurially run private businesses. It's a special privilege for me to get it from Piyush Bhai. Piyush Bhai, I think, has been a role model for me, and it never ceases to amaze me whenever I see my 18 hours of work day, ability to grasp complex issues, and not only of pharma, but all industries that I have seen him interact with. And I saw his interaction with everybody. So kind of personal relationship that he has built. But in spite of that hectic schedule, so much of traveling, I think he has time for everybody and he has ability to give guidance and advice. So thank you for this recognition. Sun Pharma, I think, is now 40 years. Started with a few psychiatric products in 83. Psychiatry because that is what we could afford, because to hire representatives you need cash flow and money. I didn't have that at that time. So we started with 2 representatives in Calcutta. And we were, I think, fortunate. At that point of time, psychiatry, neurology, cardiology, they were all small businesses in India. The India at that time was market for anti-infectives, painkillers, nutritional products. So it gave us an opportunity to grow rapidly. And our focus on investing in research, our focus on creating global scale and global quality manufacturing infrastructure helped us grow the business globally. Today, I think almost 2/3 of our business comes from international markets. Even though India is a very large part of our business and we are largest in the country, but I think as I see in future, because we have a much smaller market share globally, we expect international business to become a bigger part of business. So thank you for this recognition, and I receive this on behalf of all my colleagues at Sun Pharma, because it is they who have helped make the company what it is today. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shangvi. Congratulations again. May I now request the Minister to come back on stage for a photo op with all the winners. Can all the winners across categories please come up on stage? Mr. Shangvi, your award. May I also request Soumya Rajan from Borderfield, Vishesh Chandiok from Grant Thornton, and also the jury members, Mrs. Sanjeev Bikhchandani, Mrs. Sonu Basin, and the senior leadership of Network 18, Javed Syed, Santosh Menon, to come up on stage, please, for a photo opportunity. I hope we have all the winners with us. Soumya, Vishesh, Mr. Bikhchandani, Sonu Basin, Ms. Sonu Basin. Is Javed here? Santosh from Network 18. I hope the photographer is able to capture everyone. I hope we have all the winners on stage. Big round of applause for them. This is the lifeblood of India, the best of India Inc. on one stage. Please give them a huge round of applause. Thank you all very much. Mr. Vishesh Chandiok, if you can deliver the closing address, please. Sure. Okay, 1 minute. I think we have Ms. Muthana coming up. Can the photographers give way, please? This is one worth framing. Mr. Chandiok, if you can deliver the closing address, please. Congratulations again to everyone.
I think, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think everything that had to be said has been said. This is the India Family Business Awards. It is time to now celebrate with all these family businesses. I know that celebration is much better done outside as opposed to here. And the good news for you is I'm not going to go on very long, even though on this subject I can talk until 2023 and we do the 2023 awards. This is obviously the 2022 awards. I think the one thing I would say on this subject of family business is, whilst the problems that family businesses have are almost always the same, the answer is not the same. So what you hear, listen to it and keep participating in these sort of things. But please do not go and say, we'll try and apply X in our family. I would give you one example that stands out for me. And there are so many examples that people in my position, have the privilege of hearing, because I come across the great businesses in this room. I think half the room in one capacity or the other, and I've heard the troubles they've had to go through. But one example I'll give you, and it's about a family business in the US where the younger son wanted to join the business. The older son was already in the business, and he went and asked his dad, can I join the business? The father attached him to his best manager as a mentor. and told the son that report back to me 1 week later. Report back to me 1 week later. Now, 1 week later, the father had already known what had happened. The younger son, in line with his image of being a party boy, never woke up on time to show up on time. 2 or 3 days missed showing up. And the father asked the manager not to come with the son. And this was the Friday. So the son knocks on the door and walks in. The first thing this gentleman tells his son is, "You're fired. I've got the brief, what you did over the last week and did not do, you're fired." The second thing he says is, "Son, I hear you've just been fired. What can I do for you?" So that is what Puneet was sharing with us. Run your family like a business and run your business like a family. So, practice socialism in your business and practice capitalism in your family, if you can. I can go on about these sort of stories, but remember, do not go and quote that to your father. Or as a father, don't necessarily do that, because as I said, while continue the conversation, and let's do that outside. Honourable Minister, thank you so much for sharing your views about the role Indian family businesses have played. And I'd really like to thank all, as well as Waterfield, for their role in bringing this lovely event to all of us. Until next year, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chandiok. On that note, thank you all very much, and please join us for dinner. We'll continue the celebration outside.
Thank you for